Hello! Today I want to introduce you to an amazing story that spans centuries and connects the rich past with the mysterious fates of the people who inhabited the southern and northern hills of Ireland. This story is about a small but resilient community that existed in Antrim, a region in Northern Ireland, for nearly 1,000 years. This small settlement was able to withstand numerous challenges posed by time and nature, including devastating epidemics, years of famine, and climate fluctuations. Periods of mass starvation, such as the Irish potato famine, and global disasters like the Black Death that ravaged Europe, did not lead to the community's collapse but rather strengthened its spiritual resilience. Archaeological findings, soil layer studies, and carefully examined historical documents all indicate that the mortality rate in this area was remarkably low. It differed significantly from neighboring regions, with noticeably lower death rates, which sparks curiosity and a desire to understand how people managed to survive under such harsh conditions. An important factor was the social structure of this village, which lacked rigid hierarchies, sharply contrasting with the land ownership and exploitation systems common elsewhere. There was no land owned by landlords, nor were there forms of rent or serfdom. Each resident enjoyed complete freedom in choosing their methods of livelihood, whether farming, animal husbandry, gathering wild resources, or hunting for food. This approach allowed everyone to adapt their activities to current climatic conditions and external circumstances. As a result, the community could prepare in advance for potential risks such as crop failures, epidemics, or climate changes, avoiding dependence on external supply sources or the dominance of wealthy landowners. This self-sufficient and diversified economy contributed to the overall resilience of the community. Analysis of excavated remains and soil samples from ancient water bodies shows that residents regularly practiced agriculture and animal husbandry, actively used natural resources, which helped them spread risks and not rely on a single food source. The absence of rent payments and taxes meant that the community retained its own food supplies and resources, making it less vulnerable to natural disasters and disease outbreaks. These advantages provided stability even during times of crisis. By the early 20th century, this unique community gradually declined due to mass emigration of young people to large cities and industrial centers. However, despite this, the history of this settlement continues to attract the attention of researchers, as it serves as an example of social stability, the ability to unify people to overcome ecological and economic challenges, fight diseases, and struggle for survival in difficult conditions. Moving back to ancient times, towards the end of the 5th century, to the territory of the Yamnien kingdom on the Saravi Peninsula, where the ruler was a king named Duha. His authority was absolute and lasted nearly 30 years, during which he took numerous actions that evoked both fear and hatred among his subjects. Ancient documents describe in detail a series of systematic killings, primarily aimed at influential and noble families comprising the highest layer of the royal court. According to these sources, King Duha regularly invited his relatives and descendants of noble houses to his palace, then carried out executions, often employing cruel torture and public beheadings, creating an atmosphere of intimidation and demonstrating his complete power overall, even over his closest relatives. These bloody acts served both to strengthen the monarch's personal authority and to degenerate into manifestations of total control over the aristocracy, which was supposed to fear and obey him. However, such brutal methods provoked strong resistance from the elite, tired of enduring his tyrannical rule. As a result, nursing their hostility, noble and influential families plotted his assassination. They managed to unite and succeeded in eliminating King Duha, dealing with him at his own residence, a luxurious palace where he lived. Thus ended his reign, leaving behind a multifaceted and contradictory history, a reminder of how power and cruelty can go hand in hand, leading to the destruction of those who abuse their position. After his tragic death, his body was displayed for all to see as a potent warning. The deceased's head was placed in a prominent position so that all witnesses could see and learn the lesson about the unacceptable abuse of power or mass killings within the royal dynasty. This act served as a stark reminder of the terrible consequences that can follow if a ruler or his circle cross the boundaries of acceptability. Such an incident illustrates well the close relationship between absolute centralization of power and its immediate interaction with the aristocracy, which often became either participants or witnesses of such brutal repressions. In the history of the Middle East, there are many cases where rulers resorted to mass violence to strengthen their influence, suppress rebellions, or restore social order, which they perceived as weakened. They created complex social structures in which resistance by noble or influential clans often ended with regime changes or the complete destruction of opposition sources. Part 3 of 43. In social sciences, such an archetypal period remains a vivid example of how power and authority can be used to achieve certain goals, as well as a demonstration of the potential consequences of such strict ruling methods. It serves as an important historical lesson about how abuses of power can lead to bloody conflicts and the destruction of entire societies. In recent years, scientists have made a number of intriguing discoveries that offer new insights into the origins of life and matter in the cosmos. For example, it has been found that some meteorites falling to Earth contain all four chemical components that are the primary structural elements of DNA: adenine, thymine, cytosine, and guanine. This discovery was a real breakthrough because it opens new horizons for understanding how genetic materials arose in living organisms on our planet. The genetic code of all organisms on Earth is built on the same elements that have been found in interstellar remnants of space, supporting the hypothesis of a cosmic origin for these essential molecules. Scientists suggest that key compounds necessary for life could have formed in conditions within interstellar clouds, where chemical reactions took place in tiny, cold, and relatively isolated environments. Subsequently, these molecules, drifting through space and covered in dust, could have been delivered to our planet via meteorites and comets, serving as the raw material for the formation of the first complex organic compounds. Such externally supplied reactions could have acted as catalysts for the emergence of the earliest RNA and DNA molecules, laying the foundation for the evolution of simple living forms. The analysis of isotopic and chemical properties of nucleotides found in meteorites shows that these molecules did not originate from biological processes occurring on Earth but were formed long ago in the depths of space in a unique chemical environment that may have existed millions or even billions of years ago. This suggests that the origin of life on our planet was not a rare or exceptional event but could have resulted from the exchange of material between different celestial bodies within our star system or even across the universe. Many scientists, based on experimental data and models, are now asking whether similar genetic material exists somewhere amidst the vast expanse of the universe. And is it possible that the conditions for the emergence of life, where suitable chemical components similar to terrestrial ones are present, existed elsewhere? The discovery of all four major elements that make up DNA in meteorites not only broadens the scope of scientific research on the origins of life but also confirms the plausible existence of extraterrestrial life forms based on universal chemical principles. Part 4 of 43. This topic remains a focal point among astrobiologists and specialists in prebiotic chemistry, as it opens pathways for further exploration into the secrets of the formation and development of genetic material in space conditions. In archaeology, however, there have been astonishing discoveries of evidence of prehistoric written culture. In the Scottish landscape, archaeologists have uncovered numerous ancient stone structures inscribed with systems of carved symbols that repeat specific geometric shapes, concentric lines, and mysterious motifs. These images, created in ancient times, are strikingly diverse yet connected by a common stylistic approach, forming an entire system of written signs preserved to this day. Each image has its own features and interpretations, yet they all share an effort to record certain information, possibly ritual, astronomical, or instant messages. These stone messages serve as unique evidence of the cultural practices and beliefs of ancient peoples, who over 1,000 years ago attempted to preserve their history and knowledge through simple but highly thoughtful symbols. Such findings pique the curiosity of scientists, as they help understand not only the level of development of ancient civilizations but also their worldview, as well as methods of communication and knowledge transmission over many centuries. Numerous ancient stone artifacts are scattered across various regions, with the most notable sites located in Keela, Martin, Glen, and along the northern coasts. Although the origins of these mysterious signs and their original meanings remain not fully understood, it is hypothesized that similar symbols were used in prehistoric times as means of intergroup communication. They served as reflections of cultural traditions, belief systems, and marked ancient boundaries between agricultural or nomadic communities. Particularly intriguing is the fact that similar style and technique symbols can be found on stone slabs known as told stones in North Carolina, United States. One of the most famous monuments of this type is the Judicula stone, revered and protected by the Cherokee people, the region's indigenous inhabitants. Carvings on this stone depict figures resembling humans with an indefinite number of fingers, as well as spirals, notches, and animal figures, indicating a complex system of symbols. Researchers continue to decipher their meaning, and presently, there is no complete understanding of the significance of these ancient images. The connection and significance of these symbols in Cherokee oral tradition tell of a being named Judicula, a giant with 7 fingers endowed with magical properties. According to legends, this creature left its mark on the stone, serving as a symbol of boundary markers dividing the lands between different tribes or settlements. It is also interesting that similar symbols and carving techniques are found not only in North America but also in Scotland, where similar stone monuments were created. This has given rise to various hypotheses about possible cultural connections, exchanges of knowledge, and ideas between distant regions. In those distant times, when the Atlantic Ocean was not as wide and its role more like a water bridge, some scholars wonder, could migrations or exchanges have taken place between Europe and America long before the appearance of written sources? Others suggest that similar motifs arose independently in isolated cultures, reflecting universal archetypes of ancient thinking. Attempts to trace these connections through archaeological finds, carving styles, and the significance of symbols have so far yielded no definitive answers, but they support the hypothesis that ancient symbol systems could have had a much broader distribution than previously thought. Mythological plots that arose around these carvings help preserve a collective memory of the mysterious and sometimes inexplicable phenomena surrounding people in those eras. For example, in the Cherokees' culture, there is a legend of a giant boat, and in Scottish tales, gods, giants, and creatures reminiscent of Zoopor's mythical beings combining human and animal traits are mentioned. From a scientific perspective, stone symbols most likely reflect a desire to establish contact, delineate boundaries, protection, or internal semantic horizons. However, they also raise new questions about how ancient settlements lived and interacted across both sides of the Atlantic. The astonishing similarity between Scottish stones and the Judical stone continues to generate new hypotheses about memory, cult practices, and beliefs of the peoples inhabiting these regions, as well as the possibility of transcontinental contacts long before our known historical evidence. At the same time, studies of animal remains found in fossils and the analysis of genetic data on species that inhabited the ancient polar regions help reconstruct their complex history of adaptation to extreme conditions. During periods of global warming, when the climate changed significantly, the Arctic and Antarctica represented richer and more diverse ecosystems than today, demonstrating life's remarkable ability to adapt to changing environments. In those times, large mammals such as mammoths, woolly rhinoceroses, ancient bears, and predators at the top of the food chain inhabited northern latitudes. Radiocarbon analysis of the bones and teeth of these ancient creatures indicates complex and closely intertwined food chains connecting large herbivores and their natural predators. These studies allow us to trace how different species interacted within ancient ecological systems, as well as provide insights into the richness and complexity of their community structures. Additionally, scientific evidence indicates that the abundance and survival of such animals heavily depended on short vegetation periods characteristic of specific climate conditions. During the Eocene epoch, when global temperatures significantly increased, coniferous and deciduous forests predominated, creating unique living conditions. In these environments, especially in polar regions, a variety of small mammals and even primates could have existed, reflecting the richness and diversity of the fauna at that time. Genetic markers extracted from fossil remains enable scientists to observe changes in bone structure, teeth, fur, and physiological traits of these ancient animals. This data helps to understand how their evolution and adaptation to the environment took place. For example, adaptations related to heat preservation and increased activity during periods of limited daylight were vital parts of their biological development. Marine reptiles such as plesiosaurs and thalassosaurs inhabiting prehistoric polar seas exemplify the diversity of ecological niches. These marine predators possessed different forms, some hunted fish or squids, while others targeted larger prey, thanks to their powerful jaws and flexible fins. Analyses of fossil remains from ancient layered deposits show that giant penguins, carnivorous birds and other flightless species once inhabited Antarctica. The unique genetic features of these populations included reinforced bones, heat-insulating feathers, the ability to store fat, and efficient metabolic regulation. All of these were essential for their survival in harsh conditions, especially during periods of scarce food. In glacial lakes, cold channels, and deep rifts of those eras, some species of fish, amphibians, insects, and mollusks developed special adaptation mechanisms, including antifreeze proteins capable of preventing self-freezing and ensuring resilience to extreme cold. Polar animals such as polar bears, Arctic wolves, reindeer, and fish inhabiting cold waters also refined their adaptive traits. The multi-year life cycles of these animals lengthened, some hibernate deeply, others modify their body structure or fur cover to withstand persistent cold. These adaptations enable them to survive successfully even in the harshest climatic conditions. Modern research of fossil specimens and genetic analyses revealed that the development of such traits was uneven, closely linked to changing climate conditions, migrations, and the dispersal of populations across different regions. For millions of years, evolutionary processes within these species have proceeded at different rates and along various paths. Observations of living polar inhabitants, such as the polar bear, Arctic wolf, reindeer, fox, and coldwater fishes, demonstrate that many of the adaptive traits developed in the distant past are still preserved today. Thanks to genomic research, specific gene mutations responsible for characteristics such as lipid metabolism, temperature regulation, seasonal changes in fur coverage, and circadian rhythms have been identified. All of this contributes to their ability to survive in constantly changing climates. These discoveries help us better understand how the evolution and adaptation of polar animals have unfolded over millions of years, and the knowledge gained serves as a crucial foundation for developing strategies to conserve biodiversity in the face of ongoing climate change. For over a century, fierce debates and discussions have continued regarding the mysterious history of an ancient city of giants, hidden deep within one of the profound canyons. It all began in the early 20th century, when in 1909, the renowned researcher Henry Kincaid discovered the entrance to a vast underground system of tunnels, located high on a steep cliff overhanging the surrounding slopes. Descending into the explored tunnels, he described a network of corridors and chambers that, according to him, extended underground more than 600 meters, covering an enormous area. According to Kincaid himself, he managed to find several mummies deep within the underground city, whose sizes significantly exceeded the height of modern humans. Some of them were over 2.5 meters tall. Each mummy was wrapped in dark, dense material and seated on massive stone chairs, adopting poses very similar to meditation, suggesting a profound spiritual aspect of their existence. Along with the mummies, numerous copper artifacts and stone tablets engraved with symbols and inscriptions were discovered in this underground city. These symbols resembled Egyptian hieroglyphs, but due to their style and execution, it is difficult to determine their exact origin or cultural affiliation. The stone statues depict figures in meditative poses, holding lotus flowers. This motif, quite common in Buddhist art, raises further questions about cultural connections and possible contacts between ancient civilizations. The inscriptions on the tablets indicate that these artifacts were created in a style combining elements of various folk traditions and techniques. This makes it challenging to pinpoint their precise ethnic roots. Some objects resemble ancient European metalworking methods, while others are artifacts from ancient Asian cultures. The most mysterious of the discoveries are the tablets with inscriptions collected by Kincaid, which still remain undeciphered and raise many questions regarding their origin and true meaning. But the most astonishing part of this discovery is the mummies, whose height exceeds 2.5 meters. They evoke a sense of mystique, rising in dark halls and creating a mysterious and enigmatic atmosphere, as if coming to life in this underground land. All this information about the find was reported by the Arizona Gazette, which stated that the expedition responsible for the discoveries was organized and funded by the Smithsonian Institute, one of the most reputable research centers in America at that time. However, critics and skeptics believe that the entire story could have been nothing more than a fabrication, a journalistic adventure, or even the result of conspiracy theories. Later, no credible documents or official confirmation of the existence of the City of Giants were found, and the Smithsonian Institute did not issue any official statements about its expedition's results. The lack of substantial archaeological evidence, combined with restricted access to the canyon area, heightened suspicions about the reality of the described events. These circumstances left many in doubt and distrust, and the story of the ancient City of Giants continues to be a subject of debate and discussion. It is possible that all of this is merely a modern myth, a fabrication or legend born from journalistic imagination or conspiracy theory. Or perhaps, within this story lies the only key to the existence of an ancient civilization that once prospered in these lands and then mysteriously disappeared from North America. Regardless, today all existing theories remain merely hypotheses, unacknowledged by any scientific source. The question of the reality of this legendary city continues to prompt heated debates and unresolved mysteries, while the missing evidence creates gaps in the archaeological picture of the region. At the same time, Parda Mountain in Colombia attracts the attention of scientists, researchers of unexplained phenomena, and simply curious individuals. Located near Bogota, this well-known mountain is renowned not only for its unique natural beauty but also for mysterious phenomena occurring nearby. Primarily, it has gained fame for the regular appearance of unidentified lights in the night sky. Every week, numerous expeditions, scientists, and local residents gather here to closely observe the movement of glowing objects that seem to appear out of nowhere on the mountain summits and quickly disappear into the darkness. These unusual flashes and light phenomena still lack a satisfactory scientific explanation, making Parda Mountain a focal point for those seeking answers to the mysteries of our planet. This unusual phenomenon has yet to receive a definitive explanation from the perspective of modern physics or meteorological theories. Despite numerous attempts to record it using advanced high-tech equipment aimed at visualizing and studying such phenomena, it remains a mystery. Historically, however, Parda was closely associated with the Muisca people, an indigenous community that has inhabited this region for centuries. Archaeological excavations and oral traditions consider Parda to be a vital spiritual center where they conducted their most significant rituals and ceremonies. For the local inhabitants, religious rites, including sacrifices, held great importance and became an integral part of their daily life. Archaeological findings and documents preserved to this day confirm that these rites were performed to maintain social order, as well as to protect people and their settlements from potential external threats or disasters. When Spanish colonizers arrived in these lands and began to establish their rule, many Muisca residents faced a difficult decision to leave their homes, abandon everything precious to them, in order to save their honor and preserve their spiritual identity. This step triggered a series of tragic events and devastated their culture, leaving deep psychological and cultural scars that remain in the collective memory to this day. Over the years, researchers of anomalous phenomena, such as engineer and scientist William Chavez Isa, dedicated themselves to studying this mysterious region and its unusual atmospheric and natural phenomena. They collected a large amount of data, including photographs, videos, and recordings of strange radiation emanating from the area. However, all these evidences have yet to lead to a formal scientific explanation of the nature of these phenomena, leaving their origins subject to debate and hypothesis. Some scientists speculate that there is a connection between the area's unique geological structure, which possesses special energy fields, and the frequent appearance of unidentified lights in the sky. These hypotheses require further systematic research on an interdisciplinary basis, involving geology, physics, and atmospheric sciences. Parda exemplifies how geological features, historical events, and cultural traditions intertwine into a complex network of interconnected factors shaping a unique natural and historical landscape. This region is considered one of the most important for archaeological and anomalous studies in South America, as it preserves remnants of ancient cultural layers and simultaneously is the site of numerous unexplained natural phenomena. All this creates a unique opportunity for new, deeper scientific discoveries that broaden our understanding. Recent advances in molecular biology have led to the development of the concept of dark DNA, segments of genetic material present in the human genome but often remaining unexplained and unresolved until now. Researchers have found that a significant portion of the cell contains such regions of molecules that do not code for proteins, and their functions have until recently remained a mystery. Modern technologies reveal that dark DNA makes up a considerable part of the human genome, and its role in regulating genetic activity, maintaining chromosomal structural stability, and interacting with the environment is still being studied and debated. Fully understanding its nature and influence is hindered by an enduring enigma. The structure of these segments remains unclear, and their biological impact is the main riddle. In this sense, dark DNA is comparable to the mystery of dark matter in cosmology, both phenomena we cannot yet fully comprehend and both requiring further scientific investigation. At the same time, archaeological excavations and the analysis of ancient symbols indicate that as early as the era of ancient Sumer, people created artifacts often depicting two intertwined snakes coiled around a staff. These images have long attracted researchers' attention because they evoke a sense of sacred symbolism related to the mysteries of the universe and the spiritual knowledge of ancient peoples. Over the millennia, this motif has become one of the most recognizable and significant symbols in the history of medicine and the humanities. It appeared in the cultures of ancient Greece and Rome and has since acquired various interpretations reflecting different worldviews and spiritual concepts of those times. In different civilizations, this symbol functions not only as a sign of life and renewal but also as a symbol of knowledge transfer, spiritual energy, and biological strength. It has repeatedly appeared on ancient amulets, medical images, and coats of arms and continues today to adorn emblems of modern medical institutions and scientific societies. Such a resilient archetype attracts the attention of researchers interested in both cultural studies and biology, as each time it raises important questions about the essence of life and its origins. Interestingly, the similarity between ancient symbols and modern discoveries in genetics, especially regarding dark DNA, has given rise to the hypothesis of possible external factors influencing human evolution. For many years, scientists have debated how ancient civilizations and myths reflect ideas about supernatural intervention or the existence of hidden knowledge that could alter the course of human development. Currently, assumptions about external influences on human genetics are being confirmed by modern research. Some scientists suggest that significant transformations in the human genome compared to our closest relatives, chimpanzees or bonobos, could have ancient, possibly extraterrestrial origins or be caused by unseen forces. So far, there is no scientific evidence supporting this theory. However, recent advances in molecular biology and biomedicine show that psychosocial factors can significantly affect DNA activity. In particular, studies indicate that the state of psychological and emotional environment, such as positive emotions, resilience to stress, and emotional attitude, contribute to changes in the molecular structure of genetic material. Experiments with groups of people subjected to psychological pressure convincingly demonstrate that the structure and function of mitochondria, long considered the energy centers of the cell, are susceptible to alterations driven by emotional experiences. These changes impact not only energy metabolism but also immune system functioning, confirming a strong link between mental state and physiological processes. The influence of our mental conditions on DNA is an important area for further research, opening new prospects in medicine. It offers a new perspective on the possibilities of not only genetic programming but also the role of living conditions, emotional environment, and psychological well-being in shaping human health. Archaeological excavations and the study of ancient artifacts also raise important questions about the origins of symbols connected with ancient genetics and dark DNA. These findings lead scientists to consider how consciousness and internal states might have influenced genetic material, blending disciplines such as archaeology, genetics, and neurobiology into a single interdisciplinary field of study. A prominent example of this interdisciplinary approach is provided by the Evans Mound cultures located in the modern state of Louisiana, in the southern USA. These unique monuments are the oldest archaeological heritage of the region, estimated to be around 5,400 years old, existing long before the construction of the famous Egyptian pyramids and Stonehenge. In terms of scale and complexity, these earthworks surpass many other prehistoric structures and are among the largest in North America. Over 7 centuries, according to archaeological research, the construction of these mounds was continuous, indicating the existence of a stable and cohesive community that unified efforts toward common goals despite challenging conditions and limited resources. Archaeologists' work has revealed that the construction of these objects required long periods of focused effort, coordination, and social unity, which was challenging for the society of that time, predominantly composed of hunters and gatherers. In the deep layers of the mounds, scientists discovered numerous artifacts, stone beads, bones, tools, fishing hooks, and other items indicating a rich and diverse economic activity within the settlement. These objects also provide insights into the domestic and cultural features of the ancient inhabitants, demonstrating that their economy was apparently based on the utilization and exploitation of natural resources in close proximity to their habitats. All this suggests that even in the prehistoric era, people possessed a developed social structure and created complex cultures and traditions, which have been preserved in monuments and artifacts, forming a unique part of the historical heritage. Despite archaeological excavations and thorough research, the exact structure and original purpose of the mounds remain a mystery. At the summits of these ancient heaps, archaeologists found no traces of architectural elements or signs of mass burials, leading to numerous hypotheses about how and for what purpose they were built. Some suggest that the mounds could have served as sacred or cult centers, sites for rituals, community gatherings, or even as astronomical markers, aiding in the determination of time and calendar dates. Despite many theories, no convincing archaeological evidence has yet been found to definitively explain their purpose. Each new stratigraphic study and fieldwork repeatedly demonstrate the scale of these structures, their astonishing complexity and architectural expressiveness, often surpassing all previous estimates, especially considering that they belong to a community engaged in hunting and gathering. Overall, the burial mounds of the Evans culture serve as a vivid example of how early societies demonstrated a high level of social organization, the ability to adapt to complex natural conditions, and remarkable creative potential. These monuments of historical heritage are a valuable key to understanding the formation processes of early cultural centers on the continent and offer insights into how the first civilizations emerged long before the rise of well-known urban societies. The interest in legends about Yetis and indigenous wild peoples, myths about the Himalayan Yeti, as well as about northern peoples living in forests and mountains, continues to evoke genuine curiosity among scholars from various scientific fields. Archaeologists, geneticists, and social anthropologists all seek ways to understand what history is hidden behind these folk stories. In Himalayan mythology, the Yeti is depicted as a humanoid creature of extraordinary size, moving on two legs and covered with thick fur. Dwelling in remote, snow-covered mountains or ancient forests, such beings evoke a sense of past ages, reminding people of distant history. Accounts of the Yeti are often based on observations of footprints in the snow, mysterious sounds that are especially heard at night, or figures spotted on the horizon, moving in the depths of forests from afar. Numerous expeditions have been undertaken in an attempt to find tangible evidence of the Yeti's existence. Samples of fur, hair, or tracks that initially appeared rare and mysterious often turned out to belong to known local animals, such as the Himalayan brown bear or other easily recognizable species. Nevertheless, there is a particularly notable case in history related to Zana, a woman who disappeared in the mountains of the Caucasus in the 19th century, someone who notably stood out among others. This case provides a new perspective on the connection between mythological stories and possible historical facts. Zana, discovered in one of the villages in the region, was described as a creature with an unusually tall stature, thick and long hair, possessing a high resistance to harsh cold, and exhibiting semi-wild habits. Recent genetic studies of Zana's descendants revealed that she was a member of the modern Homo sapiens population, but had unique morphological characteristics that could have arisen from interspecies hybridization or isolated evolution influenced by the harsh environmental conditions. This case clearly demonstrates that stories of wild humans and the legends of monstrous beings derived from them are often explained not far removed from genetic and anthropological processes, rather than necessarily being evidence of a distinct, different species. Contemporary research into the links between ancient humans and monster myths increasingly focuses on analyzing ancient genomes, studying skeletal remains, teeth, and archaeological finds, as well as comparing the physical characteristics of discovered remains with those of current populations. These scientific efforts help shed light on the origins of legends, understanding to what extent they reflect real events or are products of myth-making and cultural features. Archaeological discoveries and ancient genetic studies testify that throughout human evolution, various groups of people existed, distinguished not only by external traits but also by adaptive features to their environment. Some of these ancient groups disappeared from the face of the planet, while others contributed to the formation of the genetic heritage of modern humans. Many legends describing the existence of Yeti, wild humans, or mountain monsters can be interpreted as evidence of collective memory about ancient or unusual human communities that coexisted with the main populations during their exploration of new, previously unknown territories. To uncover the true origins of these legends and myths, a comprehensive investigation combining knowledge from fields such as archaeology, genetics, morphological anthropology, and evolutionary ecology is necessary. Modern research clearly shows that stories about the Yeti and wild humans may be rooted in ancient memories, genetic diversity, and processes of local evolution. This knowledge helps us understand how human populations and their cultural ecological systems developed both in northern regions and in high mountain areas. In western Scotland, within an area called Dunbartonshire, lies one of the most remarkable archaeological monuments, the Stone with a Hole. This stone, known as the Window Stone, was created about 5,000 years ago during the Bronze Age. It is a massive stone formation over 12 meters long and more than 7 meters wide. The surface of this monument is decorated with over 90 ornaments, including concentric circles, spiral patterns, and mysterious geometric symbols that still cannot be precisely deciphered. The discovery of this stone monument in 1888 sparked heated debates among scientists and archaeology enthusiasts, as it was associated with questions about ancient stoneworking techniques and the symbolic systems available to the craftsmen of that time. Carvings on the window stone feature a combination of intersecting curved lines, deep grooves, and dot elements often very difficult to interpret. Excavations and studies show that some of these motifs resemble rock art dating back to the late Paleolithic or earlier periods and are widespread throughout Europe. However, the uniqueness of this monument is due to its complex composition and the variety of depicted motifs, setting it apart from many other Bronze Age finds. Today, numerous hypotheses exist regarding the purpose of the window stone. Some researchers suggest it may have served as an primitive astronomical observatory used to determine cycles, days, months, or years based on the position of celestial bodies. Others believe it was a sacred site for ritual ceremonies or initiation rites, while some scholars think it functioned as a territorial marker indicating the boundaries of tribal lands. Unfortunately, conclusive evidence supporting any of these hypotheses has not yet been found. In the year 1313, the window stone was artificially buried, which was explained by the desire to protect it from vandalism and environmental destruction. In 2001, as part of scientific expeditions, a team of archaeologists from the University of Glasgow conducted thorough excavations at this site, using modern scanning and 3D modeling techniques to document all details of the ornaments and symbols, with the aim of someday revealing their true meaning and origin to the world. This discovery significantly broadened our understanding of symbols and their significance for future generations. Today, the stone and the window, despite their simplicity, have become some of the most famous and discussed examples of ancient art and historical mysteries in Scotland. They symbolize the earliest crafts and artistic traditions, serving as a kind of bridge to understanding the relationships between symbolic thinking, craftsmanship, and social life in ancient European societies. In this context, they raise a series of important questions about spiritual beliefs, about how people in those times used symbols to express their ideas and faiths, as well as about the role of artisans and master craftsmen in shaping cultural heritage. Another significant archaeological monument is Nagarjunakonda, located in the state of Andhra Pradesh, India. This ancient complex is considered one of the most important monuments of Buddhist architecture in South Asia and holds a special place in the history of Buddhism. During the 2nd and 3rd centuries, this territory was the heart of the powerful Ikshvaku kingdom, which played a key role in the spread of Buddhist ideas and practices across southern India. Since the early 19th century, scholars and archaeologists have undertaken systematic work at the site, discovering numerous ruins of temples, monasteries, stupas, ritual objects, as well as inscriptions and various sculptures related to the religious life of ancient communities. These findings provide a clear picture of the daily life and spiritual practices of those distant times. Main archaeological excavations revealed that many structures at Nagarjunakonda belonged to the early Buddhist art period, which developed in the 1st century CE. Notably, monumental stupas stand out, a sacred site where relics and cult objects were once stored, attracting pilgrims from across the region. Hundreds of inscriptions in Sanskrit and Pali have been found, recounting various historical events, construction activities, and the contributions of rulers and ordinary people. These artifacts confirm that Nagarjunakonda was once an international center for Buddhist missions, where followers from all over South and Southeast Asia gathered to concentrate their efforts. There are even suggestions of connections to trade routes leading to the Mediterranean, indicating intercontinental contacts and interactions during those distant times. Part 16 of 43. The figure of the great Buddhist teacher Nagarjuna draws particular attention, as he is associated with this place through numerous legends and ancient texts. Although historical sources do not provide definitive evidence that Nagarjuna himself, the founder of the Madhyamaka school, lived or studied here, many legends link his name to the city. These historical mythological connections create a mystical aura around the monument, blending reality and religious myths, a tradition that persists among Buddhist communities to this day. Since the early 1960s, the entire Nagarjuna Valley has been flooded by a reservoir created after the construction of the Nagarjuna Sagar Dam, which significantly altered the landscape of the area. Most of the major architectural monuments were carefully relocated and reconstructed on specially designated islands within the water body to preserve them for future generations. Many valuable artifacts were transported to local museums, where they continue to attest to the rich history of the region. This extensive effort to move and preserve the monuments serves as a striking example of how large-scale irrigation projects aimed at infrastructure development can have a profound impact on archaeological heritage. Recent archaeological teams working at one of the small island zones along the coast of the Cathara Peninsula discovered an incredible architectural complex hidden beneath layers of sand, earth, and stones. Excavations revealed the remains of dwellings, foundations of large structures, and fragments of ancient building materials. Preliminary studies indicate that this was an important settlement, surpassing ordinary coastal fishing villages in scale and significance. The structures demonstrated a developed cultural layer rich in architectural and engineering solutions, pointing to a high level of organization in the ancient settlements of the region. Further research will allow us to understand the nature of this site in greater detail and to determine its role in the history and development of the area. According to ancient records, at the beginning of our era, this region was known as Tuam, a small urban-centered settlement that, over the centuries, occupied a very significant position along trade routes connecting the region to the Persian Gulf. The name reflects its importance as a hub where major trade routes intersected, making Tuam a key point for the exchange of goods and culture. The city's strategic position at the intersection of routes linking major ports of the Mediterranean and the Indian Ocean transformed it into a thriving trading center that played an essential role not only for neighboring settlements but also in the international trade networks of that time. However, the most important and astonishing discovery made during recent excavations was the uncovering of several mass graves scattered across the site. These burials were significantly different from the customary burial practices of the time, which led scholars to speculate that some tragic events had occurred at their origin. In most cases, the remains in these graves were heavily deteriorated, indicating the scale and intensity of the disaster that affected the fate of this population. The majority of the skeletons found belonged to young people, which reinforced the assumption of a mass death that struck the active adult segment of the population. What is particularly remarkable is that no signs of physical trauma or evidence of violent death were detected. Nevertheless, it appears that all these individuals died around the same time, allowing for the hypothesis of a catastrophic event. The exact age of the burials was confirmed by modern radiocarbon analysis and genetic dating, which established that this event occurred before the mid-6th century. This period coincided with the peak of the Justinian plague, one of the most devastating epidemics of the ancient world, which spread widely across the regions of the Middle East and the Mediterranean. In addition to archaeological findings, there is evidence of a sharp decline in commercial activity in Tuam, reduced quantities of goods such as pearls, imported coins, as well as signs of abandonment and destruction of old structures, clearly indicating that the city gradually lost its economic vitality and became a ruin. A great deal of oral tradition and folk stories from this region have been passed down through generations, preserving tales of a mysterious and terrible epidemic that, according to legends, forced local inhabitants to abandon their native lands and leave the once thriving city abandoned in ruins. Summarizing the results of archaeological excavations, biological studies, and historical records related to the Justinian plague, one can confidently conclude that this epidemic likely explains the mass death in this region. Tuam, being an important trading center, was literally devastated by a terrible epidemic that somehow spread from Egypt and Byzantium. Evidence of this includes mass graves containing mainly remains of young individuals, with burial dates coinciding with those of ancient epidemics, all of which vividly illustrates how a pandemic could disrupt the social fabric and fate of even the most developed cities in the Middle East and the Persian Gulf region. As for the archaeological site of Kiata, located in Guanajuato, it vividly demonstrates the development of urban life following the fall of the Tiahuacu civilization. Recent excavations confirmed that this city emerged in the 6th century, immediately after the decline of Teotihuacan, the once powerful and centralized center in the central part of modern Mexico. This historical fact suggests that there was a large-scale migration of people, who, having left the destroyed cities, moved north and established a new settlement called Eta de la Viri. The structure of this city clearly reflects its original design. On its territory, well-planned buildings have been preserved, palaces, residential houses, administrative structures, as well as irrigation canal systems, indicating advanced engineering skills and careful planning. All of this serves as evidence of a significant leap in urban development and social organization. Chiesa della Viri is truly a unique monument of ancient architecture and culture, serving as a testament to the preservation of a complex organizational structure, ritual practices, and stylistic features inherited from the Titicacan civilization. Archaeologists have discovered clear signs of stone construction here, as well as unique ritual remains associated with the worship of the moon, sun, and Venus. These findings distinctly point to a close relationship between religious and astronomical traditions that existed within the Teotihuacan cultural environment, where such ceremonies played a vital role in society. Nevertheless, information about the society inhabiting this city remains quite limited. Research indicates that the development of Chiesa della Viri lasted approximately 4 centuries, after which, in the early 10th century AD, the city was abandoned. The reasons for this disappearance have not yet been fully determined, and archaeologists are working to uncover its mystery. Currently, there is a hypothesis that environmental changes, internal conflicts, or external pressures may have played a decisive role in the community's collapse, but no conclusive evidence supporting these theories has been found yet. Today, most of the remains of this ancient settlement are located on private property, and only recently have they begun to be accessible for scientific research and more in-depth study. These new discoveries provide an opportunity to reconsider migration processes of that era and to understand the role of the Atami people in the history of the Mesoamerican region. The models of urban organization and the religious rituals that linked different civilizations through shared cultural codes and spiritual practices are also of great importance. Extensive archaeological excavations carried out in Pompeii and Herculaneum have shown that the overwhelming majority of their inhabitants perished during the catastrophic eruption of Mount Vesuvius in AD 79. However, new research and findings suggest that some people managed to survive and leave traces of their existence beyond the tragedy. Anthropological studies, ancient manuscripts, and material evidence depict a more complex and multifaceted picture. The number of skeletal remains found in the ash layers represents only a small portion of the total number of people recorded in administrative documents, tombstones, inscriptions, and lists of citizens who lived during the Roman era. Excavations in various parts of Pompeii and neighboring coastal towns have uncovered numerous records of groups of settlers whose names and origins trace back to these regions. It has been established that some families managed to rebuild their communities in different parts of the region, in Ostia, Puteoli, Fiume, as well as in remote areas of central Italy and Sicily. Inscriptions indicate that the survivors not only endured but also actively participated in city life, engaging in socio-economic and religious activities. These people gradually returned to their homes, leaving traces of their efforts and restoration behind. Families such as the Linnaeus family played a particularly significant role in this process. They actively constructed temples, held important positions in the city councils, and documented real estate transactions in local records. They participated in public works, maintaining the cultural traditions of the Pompeian era even under new circumstances. The analysis of archaeological finds such as carts, personal belongings, and coins discovered along evacuation routes suggests that a significant portion of the population was able to leave the cities before the volcano was fully covered by ash. These findings indicate organized rescue attempts, adding new details to the complex picture of events related to the well-known disaster. Other communities moved toward the ports of the Gulf of Naples seeking salvation by sea. This unique combination of archaeological discoveries, ancient texts, and material evidence completely refutes the earlier idea that the cities of Pompeii and Herculaneum were entirely destroyed by the natural catastrophe. Although both cities were physically ruined and abandoned, their inhabitants' legacy continued to persist and influence Roman culture and public life for many subsequent generations. This discovery allows us to reconsider the resilience, adaptability, and strategic survival methods of ancient societies facing natural disasters while striving to preserve their identity even after catastrophe. Now, it is also worth mentioning the Lost Monastery, a term that refers to the archaeological ruins of a medieval monastery in England, which, according to scholars, once had significant connections with the life of one of the most renowned religious figures of that time. In English history, there are special places associated with the names of great personalities who left a notable mark on the destiny of the entire nation. According to archaeological excavations, this monastery is particularly notable for its historical connections with the reign of Queen Kenedrita, the wife of King Ofmercy, who lived in the 6th century. After her husband's death, She withdrew from public life and settled privately within these walls, symbolizing not only a personal retreat into monasticism but also representing changes in political power and the role of women in Anglo-Saxon society. Excavations conducted by specialists from Reading University uncovered the foundations of wooden structures, stone floors, traces of chapels, and objects related to religious practices and ritual life. However, a significant portion of the architecture was destroyed and lost over time. Today, only sediment layers and faint ruins remain at the site of the monastery, making it difficult to ascertain the exact scale and original layout of this medieval structure. Documentary sources detailing the activities and functions of the monastery are extremely sparse. Almost none of the original written materials have survived to provide detailed descriptions of the monks' lives, their interactions with regional, religious, and political events of the period. When Queen Kenadrita left the monastery, its role in the region gradually diminished. The accumulation of material evidence indicates that religious activities continued on the site after the ruler's departure, but it no longer functioned as a major center of spiritual life. This fact has sparked debate among scholars about whether the monastery retained its significance for local believers or if its importance steadily declined amid broad changes in the church and monastic systems of England in subsequent centuries. Modern research shows that the lost monastery continues to attract interest from many archaeologists and historians eager to understand the inner structure of medieval society and the role of women in its religious life. This site also serves as a valuable resource revealing aspects of social organization, as well as the status of women within religion and societal hierarchy during the Middle Ages. Furthermore, scholars continue to study cultural motifs and symbols associated with ancient religious practices, including the influence of goddesses and sacred figures on public consciousness and urban planning policies. In this area of research, the figure of the goddess of sanitation, known as Klakina, a deity embodying the hygiene system and waste management in ancient cities, has gained particular significance. This figure symbolized the importance of sanitary aspects of urban life and served as the patroness of sanitation services, protecting the population from diseases and adverse conditions. The appearance of such deities associated with hygiene reflects the level of social organization and awareness among ancient societies regarding the necessity of maintaining cleanliness and safety in large cities. New data suggest that the goddess of sanitation played an important role in shaping ancient people's ideas about health, hygiene, and environmental care, indicating an advanced level of their social consciousness and organization. It vividly illustrates the connection between mythological concepts and the real aspects of ancient societies' lives. According to numerous archaeological studies and surviving texts, a goddess named Klakine was venerated in ancient Rome as the divine protector of the great aqueduct system known as Klaka. This engineering feat held a special place in classical civilization and was more than just a technical structure. In fact, it represented a vital infrastructure that not only supplied the city with water and helped manage floods during heavy rains and river overflows but also significantly improved the sanitation of urban areas, contributing to the growth and development of densely populated regions. At the same time, Klakine's role extended beyond purely physiological functions. Items associated with her cult, mainly small offerings or sacrifices, symbolized cooperative efforts to maintain constant cleanliness, order, and stability within the metropolis. Viewing her as a deity indicates that care for cleanliness and order was perceived in Roman society as a sacred matter, uniting people in a shared pursuit of harmony. Researchers believe that the origins of this divine patronage trace back to Etruscan traditions, reflecting complex cultural interactions in Italy before the full formation of Roman identity. Before her acceptance into the Roman cultural sphere, similar figures existed in Etruscan beliefs, suggesting that the transition from local cults to more generalized Roman religious concepts symbolized the evolution of religious thought and reinforced societal efforts for the collective well-being. An important aspect is how mythology intertwined with technological achievements, symbolizing the unity of the material and spiritual worlds. In pursuit of spiritual foundations within Roman tradition, small shrines dedicated to Klakine were constructed, decorated with reliefs and ritual objects, serving as reminders of the continuous link between everyday life and divine forces. Thus, the cult of the goddess of sanitation became not only a symbol of cleanliness and hygiene ideals but also a reflection of trust in state services, which were perceived as a cosmic extension of order and stability within society. This synthesis of practical and spiritual aspects testify to the ancient society's nuanced understanding of the importance of urban management and protective mechanisms that ensured the comfort of their inhabitants. The myth of hygiene and environmental protection served a dual purpose. On the one hand, it reinforced spiritual beliefs, and on the other, it provided practical guidance for caring for the health and safety of citizens, emphasizing the uniqueness and wisdom of their approach to urban planning and public services. Now, let us move to the era of classical Greece, which remains one of the most vibrant chapters in the history of civilization. Beneath the ground near the modern Athens Theatre, an ancient burial site was unexpectedly discovered during construction work. These archaeological findings attracted the attention of scholars and specialists in ancient history, as excavations revealed that approximately 80 skeletons were buried in what is known as the Phaleron Cemetery. What's remarkable is that all the victims had their hands tied with iron rings, and the remains were found in multiple layers, indicating the scale and tragic nature of the event. Most of the remains discovered in the grave belonged to young men who were in full health at the time of death. Their physical condition suggested they were not suffering from illnesses or prolonged afflictions, casting doubt on the idea of natural death. The positioning of the bodies led to the assumption that the victims underwent a brutal execution. Many were found lying on their backs with outstretched arms above their heads, indicating that death had occurred almost simultaneously for all participants in this mass event. Archaeologists date the skeletons to the 6th century BC, a period when Athens was experiencing significant internal upheavals and struggles for political power. During this time, large-scale social unrest, uprisings, and major conflicts between aristocrats and the common people were underway. One of the most notable events of this period was an unsuccessful coup organized by the famous Olympic champion and political figure Iacchon. This athlete, celebrated for his victories in the Olympic Games, aimed to overthrow the tyrant Megacles. Historical sources record that Iacchon and his supporters managed to seize strategic points, including the Acropolis, where decisive clashes took place. However, the victory was short-lived, and the rebel forces were defeated. Their supporters were captured and executed, while Iacchon managed to escape the battlefield. Archaeological discoveries, including skeletons in chains and showing signs of executions, confirmed the brutality of this event. At the same time, although debates continue about whether the victims were slaves or criminals, chemical analysis of the bones shows that most of the buried individuals did not belong to lower social classes or committed crimes. Their deaths, it appears, were the result of political persecution related to the struggle for power and internal unrest in ancient Athens, leaving a rich testament to the dramatic era in which these people lived. Most likely, these are the remains of free Athenian citizens, young men who actively participated in the political life of their city or took part in various uprisings aimed against the autocratic regime. Mass graves discovered in the Phaleron area testify to large-scale acts of brutal suppression carried out by Athenian authorities to eliminate their opponents. These findings provide a valuable insight into the social structure and political situation of that time, illustrating how violence and repression were carried out. The collective burials raise many questions regarding the methods of forced persecution and the grounds and motives on which they could have been enacted. During a period when Athens was on the verge of establishing early democracy, standards of justice and political values were heavily influenced by power struggles and ideological conflicts. Therefore, questions about the limits of permissible actions and the nature of political repression remain relevant for future research. Such studies may be interdisciplinary, involving anatomical and anthropological analysis, DNA studies of the remains, as well as work with historical sources, texts, and documents. The archaeological finds from Phaleron offer a unique material for a deeper understanding of the social landscape of ancient Athens, especially during a time when aristocracy was giving way to the world's first democracy and new social institutions were taking shape. Among the discovered artifacts, the legendary metal archhawk stands out, mentioned for the first time in classical philosophical texts, primarily in Plato, where it is referenced in the context of Atlantean mythology. In antiquity, archhawk was considered a building material for temples and other architectural structures of the city. From ancient Greece through the Roman Empire, this metal was associated not only with material value but also with metallurgy, technological progress, and origins. It was perceived not only as a mythological image but also as a tangible material reflecting the ancient interest in the capacities of their civilizations in metallurgy. Technical documentation from that era treats the collection of archhawk in the context of currency and luxury items, emphasizing its importance for the economy and culture of the Mediterranean. During the 12th five-year plan of the 20th century, archaeologists made a breakthrough by discovering off the coast of Sicily, at the site of a shipwreck dating back 6,500 years, 47 metal ingots identified as archrock. Spectroscopic and modern chemical analysis revealed that these ingots are mainly composed of copper, with small amounts of nickel, lead, and iron. Their composition differs from that of brass alloys, which gives them unique physical and chemical properties, including a distinctive color and shine reminiscent of gold. The discovery of orichalcum in a sunken ship near Břeclav confirms the hypothesis that ancient metallurgical technologies had reached a relatively high level of development, allowing for the creation of alloys with controllable characteristics and high commercial value. Both historical sources and archaeological finds attest to the popularity of this metal in antiquity. Its uses were diverse. Orichalcum was employed for striking coins, making auction and decorative utensils, as well as symbolic objects that emphasized the owner's status. Modern research and textual sources help definitively confirm that many Roman coins were indeed made from orichalcum. Its value was so high that, during certain historical periods, traders and sometimes officials used it as a substitute for gold, which often led to fraud in financial schemes and asset transactions and settlements. Despite numerous and very cautious attempts to recreate the original recipe of orichalcum based on ancient manuscripts, legendary texts, and the study of various artifacts, no modern experiment or specimen has been able to fully replicate this mysterious metal. Orichalcum was not just a valuable and rare adornment, a precious metal, it held special symbolic and social significance, embodying the wealth, power, and might of ancient cultures. In its properties, people valued not only physical strength or brilliance but also the deep cultural heritage it carried within itself. Legends and tales often mention connections between orichalcum and lost cities, mythical kingdoms, and powerful dynasties whose existence, according to many scientists, was closely linked to this unique metal. Stories about its use may have been passed down from generation to generation, creating a rich mythological tapestry. This connection with great ancient civilizations, especially the legendary Atlantis, continues to excite researchers' imaginations. Many believe that the secret of orichalcum was stored in the supposed rich Atlantean treasuries. However, debates about the nature and origin of this metal remain open and unresolved. Some scholars think that the discovered samples, such as finds in Sicily, indicate the existence of a very ancient metallic alloy, perhaps brass or a copper-gold mix, that at its time could have seemed extraordinarily valuable. But these findings do not fully correspond to the descriptions left by Plato and are more likely evidence of ancient craftsmen's knowledge, who used gold or a similar alloy, possibly produced by the Atlanteans or their predecessors. The main issue remains the lack of detailed descriptions of the metal manufacturing process in archaeological sites, as well as information about its development over the centuries. The absence of such data makes archrock even more mysterious, highlighting how limited modern knowledge about ancient technologies truly is. It is this lack of information that creates the impression that, despite archaeological finds, many aspects of the production and use of this metal remain shrouded in secrecy. However, discovering ingots or objects made from archrock in sunken ships or ancient cities, and correlating them with historical and physical evidence, only increases interest in the topic and confirms that this is not a myth but a material that once existed, resulting from advanced knowledge, innovations, and trade connections in the Mediterranean. The magnificent find made in 1991, a giant human skeleton uncovered at the site of an ancient Roman cemetery, caused a real sensation among archaeologists and historians. This skeleton was notably large, significantly exceeding any human parameters typical for its time. The remains were identified as belonging to a man who lived in the 2nd century AD. Preliminary estimates suggested that his height could have reached approximately 2 meters 30 centimeters, which was extremely unusual for an era when the average height of Roman men was about 1 meter 65 centimeters, and such figures were very rare. Particular attention was paid to the bones, which showed clear signs of a pituitary disease, specifically gigantism, a condition characterized by excessive growth hormone production. A detailed skull analysis revealed some trauma related to a pituitary tumor, which could have caused pathological growth. This condition confirmed a diagnosis that is an important medical fact. In addition, the remaining limb bones indicated an extremely elongated and asymmetrical structure, typical for individuals affected by gigantism. This discovery not only broadened knowledge in ancient medicine but also generated keen interest among scientists, raising questions about the origin and prevalence of giants in ancient Europe. Some specialists believe that it could have been a rare, unique case caused by a random genetic mutation. Others wonder, could entire populations with extraordinary height have existed in ancient times? To date, archaeological excavations and research have not provided sufficient evidence of the persistent presence of such tall individuals in Roman cities or their environs. In general, this case remains a vivid example that allows us to glimpse into the mysterious world of ancient diseases, clarify possible causes for the emergence of extraordinary individuals, and continue to be a subject of debate and new scientific hypotheses. The skeleton of the Roman giant undeniably represents the most striking and credible evidence of the terrifying size of these ancient creatures preserved through the ages. This discovery not only broadens the horizons of scientific research, providing insight into the peculiarities of ancient diseases, but also significantly enriches our understanding of biological variability and the diversity of forms that the human and non-human races assumed at the dawn of historical space. The finding of such a massive skeleton sparks lively and often contradictory discussions about size variations and external manifestations of early human and post-human populations, attracting the interest of scientists and enthusiasts of mysterious news. Regarding the so-called bottomless pit in Washington, a modern legend has formed in the wooded and secluded mountains near the town of Ellensburg, gaining wide popularity thanks to descriptions by Mel Waters. In the late 20th century, this person announced on the radio about his strange and mysterious discoveries, which only intensified interest in the topic. According to the popular legend, there is a giant hole on his property capable of swallowing everything into an impossible horizon, like a disappearing well into the abyss. Mel Waters claimed that when he cast a fishing line into it, he could not reach the bottom despite all efforts and the use of quite long, sturdy gear. It was said that objects thrown inside disappeared without a trace, remaining only as part of a mysterious enigma, arousing increasing fascination among adventurers, researchers, and enthusiasts of the unknown. Over time, this story about the bottomless pit became a popular discussion topic across the United States, attracting the interest not only of curious occult and anomaly enthusiasts but also of serious scientists. There were also rumors that, in authorities' circles, an urgent need had supposedly arisen to take this strange place under special control. Reports claimed that the government was allegedly involved in conducting secret military or scientific experiments related to the development of new technologies or intelligence projects. Many also spoke of sightings of strange objects in the sky, unusual lights, and sometimes disappearances of people without a trace, which only fueled the mystical aura surrounding these places. Nevertheless, professional geologists and scientists working with natural phenomena have subjected all these legends to serious criticism. They assert that the hypothesis of a truly bottomless, infinite hole contradicts modern knowledge about the structure of the Earth's crust. According to them, a sufficiently deep, bottomless pit would simply collapse under its own weight in the layers of overlying rocks, filling up with debris, groundwater, or other natural materials. During numerous search and geological studies, no scientist has been able to find any confirmation of such a pit's existence, nor even a hint of its location. On boundary maps and ownership documents, there is not a single hole matching the descriptions from legends. This leads experts to suggest that what is actually being referred to is some misconception or misperception. Perhaps it concerns abandoned mines, old wells, ancient shafts, or other human-made structures long deserted and overgrown with neglect. The story of the bottomless pit, gradually turning into a folk legend, arose from oral traditions passed down from generation to generation. Over time, these stories took on new details, acquired vivid and mysterious descriptions, reflecting human curiosity, a desire for the unknown, and a passion for solving nature's secrets. Such a narrative has become a living example of how mass culture, media, and folklore are interconnected, creating stories filled with mysticism and enigmas despite the lack of solid scientific evidence. From a scientific standpoint, despite the absence of convincing physical proof and data confirming the actual existence of the hole, the theme remains extremely appealing to a broad audience. It raises important questions about the limits of human understanding, how myths and legends intertwine with reality, and how natural mysteries still unsolved generate new hypotheses and ignite interest even among the most skeptical researchers. Ultimately, this story becomes a kind of mirror reflecting our fears, curiosity, and unwavering desire to uncover the secrets of the surrounding world. The Moravesi Plateau, located in the famous Andean mountain range of Peru, rises over 4,000 meters above sea level and is renowned for its unique natural stone formations. By the mid-20th century, archaeologists and geologists had begun uncovering one discovery after another, finding numerous stone shapes, many of which resemble human figures, various animals, or mysterious symbols, long subjects of scientific and mystical speculation. Some of these stone formations rise dozens of meters high, creating a truly impressive and distinctive landscape, a natural sculpture gallery within the mountainous terrain, where each stone seems to guard its own secrets. Researchers note that many of these structures and carved images clearly do not conform to typical principles of natural rock weathering, leading to debates about their origin. While most experts lean towards the idea that such formations resulted from natural processes such as climate changes, erosion, and millions of years of geological transformations, there are also those who express doubt about their entirely natural origin. Some researchers wonder whether the hands of ancient humans could have left their marks here. However, to this day, no archaeological findings confirming human influence have been found. At the same time, Moravesi has become a platform for discussions and alternative hypotheses. There are theories suggesting that traces of mysterious creatures, smaller than modern humans, might have inhabited these stones and the surrounding area. Local legends mention hidden tombs and passages about 1 meter high, adding an air of mystery and raising questions about who or what once populated these lands. Bolder theories propose the possibility of celestial or extraterrestrial civilizations connected to this region. It should be noted that none of these hypotheses have yet been confirmed by research. However, Moravesi continues to attract scientists from fields such as geology, archaeology, anthropology, and evolutionary biology. This unique area serves as an excellent example of the natural diversity of landforms and constantly broadens our understanding of ancient times, reminding us that much of its mysterious history remains undisclosed. Additionally, folk legends passed down through generations are filled with images and myths, central to which is the legendary ice monster named Chuchin, symbolizing the close link between the harsh natural environment and local ideas about human transformation in the struggle for survival. According to ancient stories, Chuchin was originally a human possessing special knowledge and strength, but during the hardest trials, when a person was on the verge of despair or under supernatural influence, he would transform into a predatory and terrifying creature. This metamorphosis is perceived by locals as the result of psychological and social pressure faced under extreme necessity. Legends emphasize that Chuchin's appearance is affected by excessive physical changes, especially by his ability to grow larger in proportion to his inner hunger and desire. These images reflect primal fears associated with losing control over one's instincts, as well as highlight the impact of extreme cold and harsh climate conditions on human physiology. In its terrifying form, Chuchin cannot withstand normal temperatures, and his existence is only possible in icy, frosty places covered with eternal ice. Under such conditions, it becomes an embodiment of radical biological adaptation to the harsh northern environment, a symbol of human strength and, at the same time, vulnerability in the face of merciless elements. Traditional methods of destroying the legendary Chuchin, such as destroying its heart with salt or attempting to induce vomiting, were not merely symbolic gestures. They more deeply reflect folk wisdom passed down from generation to generation and served as a kind of ritual aimed at weakening or overcoming this supernatural creature. In folk beliefs, the heart is often perceived as the center of vitality for any being, and therefore breaking it, according to superstition, means depriving the victim of its source of existence and energy. The use of salt in these rituals symbolized a disruption of physiological and energetic balance, since salt is considered a substance capable of disturbing the natural harmony of the body's systems. Conversely, inducing vomiting is a metaphorical act of cleansing, aimed at freeing oneself from toxins, magical presences, or pathological conditions. From a modern perspective, all these methods may seem merely ritualistic gestures, but at their core, they reflect the connection between early scientific approaches and the mythological beliefs of peoples, their ideas about magical intervention and knowledge that could reduce the power and danger of this mysterious creature. In a cultural context, the legend of Chuchin serves as a reminder of the necessity to observe moral boundaries and the consequences of violating social or spiritual norms, which in mystical stories manifest as terrible punishments or destructive encounters with the supernatural. Belief in the existence of this creature significantly influenced people's daily life, their interactions with nature and the environment. It shaped their worldview and everyday customs, emphasizing dangers associated with disrupting harmony with the natural surroundings. This legend also explains social phenomena such as acute shortages of resources, periods of violence, and psychological crises, demonstrating how indigenous cultures adapted to the harsh climate of North America both practically and spiritually. Today, ethnographers and sociologists perceive the image of Chu Chin as a vivid example of the formation of collective fear, as well as a mythological explanation of natural and social phenomena in communities inhabiting the northern edges of the continent. At the same time, this legend reflects the remarkable ability of traditional cultures to seek explanations for complex natural conditions by employing rituals, symbols, and beliefs to maintain social stability and spiritual balance. Archaeological research focused on studying the decline of the Maya Empire centers on analyzing preserved remains of biological and environmental evidence found in sediment layers deposited in Central American lakes and rivers. These traces, preserved beneath calcified deposits on the bottoms of water bodies, have allowed scientists to reconstruct the activity of ancient cities and societies. During these studies, researchers discovered organic materials accumulated over many millennia and extracted core samples of sedimentary rocks, in which successive layers of history are recorded. This approach makes it possible to trace changes in population size and the level of active use of natural resources over the centuries. The basis of the analysis is the identification of specific chemical compounds, especially those formed as a result of human digestion, in each layer of sediment. These compounds, highly resistant, are easily reflected in archaeological remains and enable precise determination of human activity changes across different eras. The concentrations of these substances in the layers indicate when the population reached its peak, actively utilized natural resources, and during periods of decline and reduction in numbers. The chemical compounds found in sediment layers allow researchers to reconstruct population dynamics and understand the factors influencing their fluctuations. This data also helps identify periods of environmental crises caused, for example, by prolonged droughts, sharp declines in rainfall, water shortages, or social upheavals associated with the destruction of major settlements. The impact of such events left not only chemical traces but also manifested in environmental structures, findings of ash layers, charred plant remains, and changes in pollen composition. All these indicate large-scale natural and anthropogenic cataclysms that significantly affected the development of the ancient Maya civilization. Analyzing these traces creates a comprehensive picture of how ecosystems changed, the cycles of natural disasters, and how these threats affected people's lives. Thus, archaeological and ecological research provides a unique window into the past, allowing us to understand how ancient societies adapted to complex natural conditions and how their cultures managed to survive and develop over centuries despite numerous natural and social crises. All these events and discoveries pertain to the same time periods. Extensive studies show that during prolonged droughts and climatic upheavals, agricultural lands gradually became exhausted, and freshwater sources diminished. Under such conditions, people were forced to seek new places to live where resources were more abundant or to abandon their towns and settlements to escape mounting hardships. Each stage of such ecological and social tension caused profound changes in societal organization, led to internal conflicts, and sometimes resulted in wars between individual cities or states. All these processes often led to the complete collapse of civilizations, their final downfall, and eventual oblivion. The fall of the centralized governance systems in the Maya region is one of the most significant and pivotal moments in the area's history. This was especially evident during the Spanish conquest, when a sharp demographic change occurred amidst the era of exploration and colonization. Modern scientific research, based on the analysis of sedimentary deposits obtained through the so-called tweezer camera method, revealed a substantial increase in organic remains, indicating mass migrations of people fleeing war, genocide, and violence that accompanied the advancement of Spanish conquistadors into Maya territory. These findings were not reflected in traditional archaeology or in the records of Spanish chroniclers and historians of that period. For the first time, contemporary science obtained indirect evidence of large-scale Maya migrations precisely through the use of this investigative method. The rise and fall of the Maya civilization was not due to a single catastrophe but resulted from a combination of various factors. Among them are extreme climate phenomena, rising temperatures, droughts, depletion of natural resources, social tensions, internal rebellions, and, of course, interference from external powers that exerted significant pressure on the region. The integration of geological research, archaeological discoveries, and analysis of historical documents allowed researchers to identify the main causes of the decline of this rich and powerful civilization, which flourished in Central America for several millennia and left behind a substantial legacy. Turning to archaeological discoveries from more distant eras, one noteworthy find is in Indonesia, on the island of Kalimantan, where scientists unearthed one of the oldest human skeletons dating back approximately 31,000 years. This discovery marked a breakthrough in the study of ancient prehistory. An especially remarkable aspect of this find is the clear evidence of a surgical operation amputation of the left leg. Detailed analysis of the preserved bone tissue showed that the amputation was performed very carefully, and judging by the healing process, the individual lived for a long period afterward. Such a conclusion confirms that the procedure was carried out intentionally and under conditions that allowed for wound management. This discovery is the earliest and most convincing evidence that ancient humans possessed skills in performing surgical interventions. Until now, it was believed that medical operations emerged around 10,000 years ago, during the Neolithic period, as a result of agricultural development and settled lifestyles. The new data suggests that surgical skills were mastered much earlier. A finding in Southeast Asia, where a skeleton with signs of amputation was discovered, confirms that ancient hunters and gatherers possessed knowledge of the properties of herbs, methods of fighting infections, and wound healing. Additional studies of the environment, burial site, and the context of this find indicated that it was not an accidental burial but an intentionally prepared grave. These results suggest the development of complex medical skills already in prehistoric times, challenging traditional views of the cognitive level of our ancient ancestors and their capabilities in the field of medicine. This important discovery opens the possibility of hypothesizing the existence of an organized community that likely cared for its members, people who suffered severe wounds and required special care and treatment. Such a find offers hope for a deeper understanding of long-gone eras and sheds new light on the development of ancient societies in the Southeast Asia region. It helps to comprehend how our ancestors managed injuries that were difficult to treat and how medicine evolved among them. This archaeological discovery opens new horizons for studying the history of medicine in ancient times and illustrates how ancient people adapted to harsh everyday conditions, skillfully utilizing available resources and knowledge. A thorough analysis of the evidence from this discovery allows hope that researchers will continue to seek additional proof to gain a more comprehensive understanding of the skills, tools, and living conditions of those involved in performing such complex procedures as amputations in the distant past. During the medieval period, the growth of cities with constantly increasing populations led to a deterioration of sanitary conditions. This created a favorable environment for the proliferation of rodents, rats, and mice that caused great harm to people. Consequently, the need arose for specialists, rat catchers, whose profession became an integral part of urban sanitation. In the fight against rats, which were carriers of dangerous diseases such as the plague and the bubonic plague, rat catchers played a crucial role in the public health system. Their main task was to trap and kill pests. Typically, mechanical traps, poison baits, and trained dogs and ferrets, which excelled at eradicating rodents, were used for this purpose. In addition to controlling pest populations, these specialists served as primary alert systems, warning the population and authorities about the onset of epidemics and health threats. By the 10th century, with the advent of industrialization in European cities and their increasing populations, the profession of rat catcher acquired a more professional character. Specialized firms and services emerged, offering comprehensive solutions for rodent extermination. During this period, new biological and chemical methods of control were developed and quickly gained widespread use. These achievements contributed to the refinement of pest control methods, which was linked to deepening knowledge in medicine and microbiology. During this period, scientists began to better understand the relationship between the presence of rats, fleas, and the spread of diseases such as the plague, marking a significant step in developing preventative measures. By the early 20th century, traditional rat trapping gradually gave way to a modern pest control system based on scientific research and sanitary standards. This process involved the introduction of carefully developed chemical agents, standardized hygiene practices, as well as systematic monitoring and study of rodent life cycles. Such an approach not only enabled effective elimination of infected areas but also prevented new outbreaks of diseases in urban environments. Gradually, the profession of pest control specialist became part of a broad set of measures aimed at maintaining public health and ecological balance. It evolved into an independent and essential industry, becoming a reliable pillar for modern urban sanitation management. The role of the rat catcher, which in the Middle Ages was underrated and often considered a simple craft, gradually transformed into a recognized and respected element of the urban healthcare system. In the modern world, this profession holds an important place in ensuring food safety and epidemic prevention. Today, pest control professionals utilize advanced technologies, monitoring, and preventive systems, significantly enhancing the effectiveness of such measures. This evolution demonstrates how a profession, initially based on simple and sometimes modest methods, has gained the status of a key component in protecting human health and well-being. The history of human civilization is full of events that could have fundamentally changed the course of world history. Over the centuries, humanity has witnessed critical moments teetering between profound change and the preservation of the established order. These turning points often contain the potential for radical transformations capable of drastically reassessing political, social, and cultural situations. International historical chronicles frequently record such moments, recounting events that could influence the fate of the entire world, be it coup attempts, diplomatic crises, or wars. However, despite the undeniable importance of these events, many of them ultimately remained within the realm of possibility. They did not lead to a new reality but merely demonstrated the limits of human initiative and destiny. One notable example of such an event is the failed assassination attempt on Adolf Hitler that took place on July 20, 1944. This episode was a significant moment that could have changed the course of history if the attempt had successfully ended the dictator's life. Nevertheless, despite the failure, it demonstrated the strength of resistance, internal opposition, and the difficulties faced by supporters of change during difficult times. Such events serve as a reminder of how fragile the balance between stability and destruction can be, and how sometimes seemingly small, accidental impulses can have far-reaching consequences for the fate of entire nations and states. Had the conspiracy in question been successful, the destiny of the Nazi leadership might have turned out quite differently, and by the early 1930s, its power could have been overthrown or significantly weakened. Such a scenario would have meant radical changes in the political and geopolitical landscape of Europe, as well as the entire world in the post-war period. In this hypothetical situation, many key events of the 20th century might have taken a different course. Similarly, an example can be given with Vladimir Lvovich Lenin in 1919. The failed assassination attempt on him allowed the Bolshevik leader to maintain control over the leadership of the Soviet state. This fact became the foundation for the further establishment of the Soviet Union and the formation of a new system of international relations, which defined the political map of Europe and the world throughout the 20th century. Had Lenin been eliminated during that critical period, the entire historical trajectory would likely have taken a different path. There could have been a completely different form of the state's existence, or even the absence of the Soviet Union in any form, which would have had serious implications for global development. This might have signaled the emergence of other power centers, significantly altering the balance of forces within the country and beyond, leading to new political conflicts and possibly to the rise of other leaders such as Stalin, accompanied by mass repressions and crises. One of the most significant events in world history is considered to be the defeat of Napoleon's army during the Russian campaign of 1812. If the outcome of that battle had favored the French troops, the future map of Europe could have changed dramatically. A victory for Napoleon's army might have sustained the dream of universal dominance that Napoleon pursued and allowed the old European powers to restore their order more quickly, solidified at the Congress of Vienna. Conversely, a French defeat would have completely shattered Napoleon's ambitions and paved the way for a restoration of traditional borders and the established regimes of that time. If the French forces had nonetheless achieved victory, the chain of events leading to the two world wars and the conflicts of the 20th century might have developed quite differently than what we observe today. Also noteworthy is the Battle of Teutoburg Forest in the 9th century AD, where Germanic tribes defeated 3 Roman legions. This blow halted the process of Romanization of the Germanic tribes and dashed any hopes of their assimilation and the spread of Roman culture in these territories. Had the Romans prevailed at that time, the fate of the German lands might have unfolded differently, which in turn would have influenced the development of European states, their legal systems, languages, and social structures. Every historical event contains the potential for significant changes in subsequent generations. Each major shift could dramatically reshape the course of the future. However, history is not only about wars and political conflicts. Infectious diseases and pandemics also serve as vital turning points. For example, the Black Death, a terrible plague that claimed nearly a third of Europe's population at the beginning of the 14th century, became an integral part of the continent's historical development. This event sparked widespread socioeconomic changes, altering everyday life, demographic structures, and urban development. Nevertheless, even with higher mortality rates or a longer pandemic, the overall impact of this phenomenon would have been significant but not so overwhelming as to completely halt Europe's progress. The scale of change regarding population, living standards, and social organization could still have been substantial but not absolute. It is likely that the overall map of the world could have shifted, with displaced population centers, new migration flows, and changes in economic ties and political structures. Catastrophic famines, severe economic crises, and almost catastrophes such as the conflict among the Anglo-Saxon colonies in the south of North America in the early 15th century serve as examples of situations that, had their outcomes been different, could have forever altered regional and global history. The success or failure of these events would have influenced the fates of peoples, their development, economic systems, and political regimes. Analyzing such moments shows how chance and unpredictable circumstances can affect the course of human development. Historical turning points and unexpected twists teach us that the future of humanity depends not only on strategies and decisions but also on the intricacies of destiny, random events, and favorable or, conversely, catastrophic circumstances. Studying these aspects helps us understand how thin the line is between a specific historical moment that determines the fate of nations and a fateful mistake that could lead to a completely different outcome. Ultimately, lessons from history emphasize the fragility of progress and the importance of every key event that can become decisive for the development of civilization. They clearly demonstrate how vital the role of individual decisions is in the course of human history. Such decisions are directly influenced by numerous factors, including climate conditions, the presence and spread of various diseases, the political situation, as well as unpredictable circumstances that often had a significant impact on the fate of peoples. While alternative theories and hypotheses remain speculative, they contribute valuable insights into the underlying causes and mechanisms of the global changes occurring over millennia. It is these theories that help researchers reconsider the driving forces of historical progress and the patterns of epochal shifts. For hundreds of thousands of years, Neanderthals dominated in Europe and Western Asia, representing one of the largest prehistoric groups. However, roughly 40,000 years ago, this population nearly vanished, leaving behind only sporadic archaeological artifacts. To this day, scientists debate intensely over the reasons for this extinction. Some attribute it to environmental changes, others to internal competition or death due to diseases. Recent studies, however, point to technological evolution, specifically, the development of new methods for making weapons and tools, as the key factor. Experts have analyzed finds of ancient tools discovered during archaeological excavations dating from the same period. At a time when Neanderthals and early Homo sapiens coexisted in Europe and Asia, the latter began employing radically new types of weapons such as projectile arrows and spears capable of hitting targets at a distance, significantly increasing hunting and combat effectiveness. In contrast, Neanderthals mainly used short, stabbing spears designed for close combat, requiring direct contact and considerable physical effort. The advent of projectile weapons marked a revolutionary breakthrough in hunting strategies in warfare. This technological innovation provided Homo sapiens with a substantial advantage, not only boosting hunting success by enabling the collection of more food but also dramatically expanding their ability to defend and secure their territories. As a result, due to superiority in weaponry and tactics, Homo sapiens started to displace Neanderthals from favorable, resource-rich areas, ultimately leading to their gradual decline and extinction. Modern genetic research indicates that the DNA of contemporary humans still contains a small amount of genetic material inherited from Neanderthals. This evidence suggests that limited interbreeding occurred between the two groups, ongoing interactions that continued until the complete disappearance of Neanderthals. Nevertheless, it is quite clear that technological advancements in new hunting tactics had a much more decisive impact on the fate of this ancient population than climatic changes or diseases, which are often considered the primary causes of extinction. These factors altered the evolutionary trajectory and accelerated the decline of Neanderthals, playing a key role in human development. Further research into the stone and other material tools from that era remains central to understanding how competition and shifts in dominant groups occurred, as well as how survival strategies among the earliest human ancestors evolved. Among the array of archaeological finds, a particular significance is attached to a skull known as the Star Child, which is considered one of the most discussed and mysterious artifacts in modern anthropology and archaeology. It was discovered in Mexico in the 1930s in a joint burial site with a human skeleton. This skull was sent to the United States for examination and subsequently became the subject of numerous scientific debates. It was named Starchild due to its unusual features: an enlarged cranial cavity, a rounded vault, a prominent forehead, a flat skull base, as well as the absence of well-developed frontal sinuses and unusual sutural features. Some researchers observed that the proportions of the skull size to brain volume in this specimen far exceeded standard indicators for children of comparable age, which sparked many hypotheses about its origin and nature. These unusual traits drew widespread interest and discussion among scientists, including supporters of extraterrestrial contact theories and advocates of classical archaeology. Some believed that the unique skull found in the mountains could be evidence of hybridization between humans and aliens. For a long time, this peculiar artifact sparked curiosity and folklore. However, after conducting the necessary scientific examinations and thorough medical studies, it was established that the skull actually belonged to a child approximately 5 years old. Analyses revealed that the child had congenital diseases that led to significant deformities of the skeletal structure. These anatomical features could have resulted from conditions such as hydrocephalus, a state where an excess of fluid accumulates inside the skull, or craniostenosis, an abnormal early fusion of skull base bones. Both conditions cause increased intracranial pressure and significantly impair the normal development of the bones and cartilages of the head and face. Additionally, the child exhibited underdeveloped nasal sinuses and a flattened skull base, which are typical of several rare pediatric syndromes. In all these cases, congenital abnormalities were often accompanied by complex cranial deformities, which explains the unusual appearance of the find. From the perspective of modern medicine and biology, theories of hybridization and connections with extraterrestrial beings are completely refuted. Genetic analysis based on the study of ancient DNA showed that its genome falls entirely within the range of variations characteristic of modern humans. No traces of alien genes or signs of other species or races were found in the genetic studies. All of this indicates that this skull is a rare but entirely earthly anomaly associated with congenital disorders. Nevertheless, the story of the Star Child continues to intrigue many people's minds and imaginations. Its unusual appearance, mysterious discovery circumstances, and clearly atypical medical features make it a classic example of how rare biological conditions can fuel all sorts of legends, mystical theories, and various speculations. These stories often arise from a lack of information or a desire to find something extraordinary beyond the obvious. In the mid-15th century, a figure associated with the name Baphomet appears in European history, closely intertwined with the fate of the Knights Templar and a wave of political and religious conflicts that swept that period. This name first appears in legal documents related to the activities of this military and religious organization. At the beginning of the 14th century, French King Philip XIV, under pressure and using torture, disbanded the Templar order, accusing its members of various crimes and heresy. Among these accusations was a reference to the worship of a mysterious being called Baphomet. Descriptions of this creature are vague and often contain contradictory information. It is sometimes depicted as a creature combining both human and beastly features, with horns, tails, or clawed paws. Many modern historians and researchers suggest that the name Baphomet may have resulted from the distortion and incorrect translation of the Prophet Muhammad's name, which Western Christians used during their contacts with the Islamic world during the Crusades. In conditions of cultural clashes and religious intolerance, such mistakes often occurred unintentionally or deliberately, to justify accusations of heresy and blasphemy. Over time, the legend of Baphomet transcended the initial paranoia and spread into European folklore and myths, especially after the dissolution of the Knights Templar. It contributed to forming an image of a demonic being associated with secrets and magical rites, although, in reality, such a creature never existed. In the 19th century, the image of Baphomet underwent a new transformation. French occultist Eliphas Lévy, studying ancient symbols and esoteric traditions, reimagined this mythical character and created a new, more sinister, and mysterious visualization of it. He depicted Baphomet with a goat's head, wings, and symbols of duality, magic, and hidden knowledge. This image became a central figure in Western occult traditions and was widely used in various esoteric teachings. As a result of complex historical processes, linguistic and religious interactions, the symbol of Baphomet transformed from an enigmatic myth into a powerful cultural archetype associated with secrets, magic, and forbidden knowledge. Its evolution illustrates how centuries of transformation and interpretation can turn an ancient image into a modern symbol of magical and demonic power. The process of forming lasting and profound symbols in history is marked by its complexity and multifaceted nature. It often begins with misinterpretations of religious references or cultural traditions, which later lead to the creation of images and myths embedded in collective consciousness as important signs and ideas. These symbols, although initially carrying different meanings, over time are transformed under the influence of propaganda, political power, or popular culture, becoming potent tools for shaping public opinion and identity. A vivid example of this process is the legend of Gonzalo Guerrero, a Spanish sailor who became one of the few cases of complete adaptation and assimilation into the culture of the native peoples of America in the early 11th century. After his ship was wrecked in the 15th year, Guerrero and his companions were captured by the Maya on the coast of what is now modern Mexico. Most of his companions were either killed or turned into slaves, which was typical for the time and circumstances. However, Guerrero, demonstrating extraordinary resilience and strength of character, gradually adapted to the new conditions, learned their language, adopted their customs, and reached such heights in their society that he ultimately became their military leader. Under the leadership of a Maya named Nicanjen, he actively participated in organizing resistance against the Spanish conquistadors, marking one of the few successful cases of indigenous people fighting back against European colonizers. It is quite evident that Gonzalo Guerrero was not an ordinary outsider, a mere stranger from the western seas. By marrying a Maya woman named Zazilha, he became the father of 3 children, who modern historians consider the first representatives of a mixed race combining Spanish and Maya roots. According to documents from that time, Guerrero pierced his ears and tattooed his face, details that attest to his efforts to fully integrate into local society and adopt its cultural norms. His determination and love for new conditions grew so strong that he refused to leave Maya, despite persistent attempts by Spanish authorities to seize him and the demand to return to European rulers. Although Hernán Cortés expressed in his letters and diaries a desire to bring Guerrero back to the European side, he remained in Maya, becoming part of their community, which sparked active debates among modern historians and anthropologists. This circumstance is particularly interesting in the context of studying the processes of cultural adaptation and blending, since Guerrero became not just a symbol of resistance, but also a living example of how close integration among different ethnic groups is possible. His story demonstrates that in conditions of cultural clashes, unique and diverse communities often form, defying stereotypes of pure and homogeneous peoples. On the contrary, such processes of forming mixed societies have shaped the cultural and demographic dynamics of the region, including Central America. Today, the heroic fate of Gonzalo Guerrero is an important subject for researchers in history and anthropology, as it helps to understand the mechanisms of cultural and genetic exchange that developed during the earliest contacts between Europeans and the peoples of the New World. In this context, his example illustrates how human identity can remain vibrant and flexible under the pressure of historical transformations. His fate symbolizes the idea that even amidst conflict, violence, and cultural collision, it is possible to create new, synthesized forms of existence and development. This aspect not only broadens our knowledge of the past but also continually raises questions about how integration and assimilation influence the development of multicultural communities in the modern world. The legend of the Philosopher's Stone, originating in medieval beliefs, is closely linked to European alchemy, an ancient doctrine in which mystical and practical aspects intertwine. In medieval and early modern European texts, the description of the Philosopher's Stone appears as a symbol of ultimate knowledge and a powerful transformative force of matter. It is depicted not only as a physical object endowed with magical properties but also as a metaphor for achieving spiritual perfection, inner illumination, and the pursuit of supreme truth. In alchemical treatises by renowned scholars such as Roger Bacon, Paracelsus, and Isaac Newton, the Philosopher's Stone holds a special place, being an essential element of careful research and dreams of transmuting ordinary materials into gold, as well as of discovering an eternal motor capable of providing an inexhaustible energy source. These scientists regarded it as a sort of ultimate goal of alchemy, the highest achievement uniting matter and spirit, material and spiritual in the quest for absolute truth and perfection. Legends and myths have told for centuries about its ability to turn base metals, such as lead or copper, into precious gold. This incredible power attributed to it made it the object of worldly dreams and aspirations of alchemists throughout antiquity. Additionally, it was believed to be a key ingredient of a special elixir of life, a magical potion that had the power to grant health, longevity, and according to ancient legends, even immortality. All of this was explained by the idea that the concept of the Philosopher's Stone was rooted in a deep philosophical and mystical context, inspired by ancient Greek views on the perfection and harmony of matter. Ancient alchemists considered this stone the pinnacle of material perfection, the result of a long and complex process of transmutation involving chemical, physical, and spiritual purifications. In their view, just as a blacksmith brings metal to perfection, a person could through spiritual and material transformation attain the highest form of matter, embodied in a unique substance, the Philosopher's Stone. In literature, culture, and sacred texts such as the Hermetic corpus or treatises, this stone often became a symbol not only of material transmutations but also of spiritual transformation, transcending the ordinary world to reach higher truth and enlightenment. Nevertheless, despite the widespread legends and myths, no comprehensive scientific proof of the actual existence or physical discovery of the Philosopher's Stone has ever been obtained. Throughout the centuries, its existence remained a secret shrouded in mysticism and fantasy. However, interest in this mystery had a profound influence on the development of science and philosophy. Many prominent and brilliant thinkers of the Renaissance, such as Francis Bacon, Robert Boyle, and Isaac Newton, showed genuine interest in this mysterious concept. They dedicated years of research and experimentation to uncover the secrets of transmutation and the quest for a universal substance. Their alchemical experiments, often rich in symbolism and secrecy, laid the groundwork for modern chemistry, even if they did not lead to the creation of a physical philosopher's stone. It was precisely through their efforts that initial ideas about chemical reactions, element combinations, and the process of purifying substances were formed. The influence of alchemy on the development of science was more significant than it might seem at first glance, as it was during this time that the first concepts of experimentation, knowledge systematization, and the search for the true composition of matter emerged. In the modern era, the image of the Philosopher's Stone has become a powerful cultural symbol. It is associated with humanity's ongoing pursuit of the unknown, transforming reality materially, and striving for perfection both spiritually and physically. The memory of legends immortalized in literary works and historical chronicles continues to inspire researchers, archaeologists, and scholars who seek to understand how science, mythology, and philosophy interacted in the development of human thought and culture. At the same time, recent archaeological excavations in Egypt have uncovered compelling evidence that the ancient Egyptians possessed knowledge of meteoritic iron long before the technologies for melting and processing it were developed. Such finds demonstrate a high level of skill and understanding of the nature of materials, as well as complex notions about substances falling from the skies. Analyses of archaeological artifacts conducted by modern scientists have shown that many iron objects found in the tombs of pharaohs and queens contain elevated levels of nickel and cobalt, characteristic of meteoritic origin. These data suggest that the ancient Egyptians not only observed meteors and celestial falls but likely used meteoritic iron in their crafts and rituals, attributing special significance to the discovered meteorite iron. One vivid example of such artifacts is the famous dagger found in the tomb of Tutankhamun. This item, dated to approximately the 13th century BCE, was discovered alongside a number of iron amulets, jewelry for the sarcophagus, and various arrows and knives created during the era of the Old Kingdom. What is particularly interesting is that all these items were made many centuries before the region saw the emergence of the first ironworking technologies. Moreover, hieroglyphs frequently appearing on the walls of numerous temples and pyramids of the ancient Egyptians mention iron from the sky. This term is often interpreted by researchers as a reference to meteors and falling stars, indicating the ancient author's attention to celestial phenomena. It is quite possible that the Egyptians not only observed celestial bodies but also actively used substances falling from the sky in their religious rituals, ceremonies, and offerings. The ancient Egyptians not only recorded the appearance of meteors but also collected them, transforming them into sacred objects associated with divine rule and power. Meteoritic iron was considered a sacred material, a symbol of divine strength and royal authority. It was used to create ceremonial objects such as special ornaments, symbols of power, or ritual attributes embodying the connection between humans and the heavens. Most of these items were not intended for everyday use. They served as religious ceremonial artifacts, symbols of the divine origin of the ruler, and the higher power blessing his reign. Thus, the ancient Egyptians not only observed stars and meteorites with great attentiveness but also transformed them into important ritual objects, reinforcing their connection to the heavens through the efficacy of natural blessings. In their culture and religion, meteoritic iron held sacred significance, confirming the uniqueness of ancient concepts about matter and the role of the cosmos in human life. A profound understanding of the origin and value of meteoritic iron raises crucial questions for researchers regarding the ancient Egyptians, their knowledge of astronomy, cosmology, and natural phenomena observation. These ancient people possessed the exceptional ability to distinguish meteoritic iron from materials obtained through melting and forging, demonstrating a remarkable level of their knowledge and skills. In their worldview, materials from the heavens occupied a special place, a fact confirmed by both ancient texts and archaeological finds. Archaeologists often discover fragments in Egyptian excavations that indicate the Egyptians not only gazed at the night sky with reverence but also actively incorporated cosmic gifts into their material and spiritual practices. These discoveries significantly broaden and deepen our understanding of the technological progress of ancient Egypt. It is important to note that the boundaries between religion, science, and technology in their society were much less clear-cut than we tend to think today, which allowed for the development of technologies and knowledge that far exceeded their time. If these mysterious and captivating stories pique your interest, you are always welcome to leave your thoughts and questions in the comments. It is essential to remember the importance of attentive perception and strengthening your knowledge, for the history of the past is reflected in the objects and knowledge that have survived to our days and help us understand how human skills and perspectives developed.